do you make these mistakes with your training? So I see this a lot with lifters. Now, there's a certain amount of tenacity that's involved with powerlifting in the sense that you need to kind of keep doing the same few things over and over and over and repeat a process to get to your end result. Spend 3 to 6 days a week in the gym, put in X hours of work into your workouts, your recovery, your mobility work, getting through any injuries and stuff you're dealing with, and then adjust your process a little as you go. And on the surface, that's actually really, really good stuff. But what I see a lot is lifters who are kind of stuck in this idea where they almost trust the process too much to where they almost think, oh, it'll just get better, it'll just get better, as opposed to looking at things with a bit more of a critical eye. So a common place I'll see this is lifters who will have kind of some sort of an ache, right? So let's say, for example's sake, right hip. So kind of QL, SI joint area. Their right hip just tends to feel kind of banged up whenever they pull heavy. And over the course of a training cycle, in the lighter weights, they tend to be okay. But as soon as they get to, let's say, 500 pounds on a deadlift, it always seems to blow up on them. And they don't really do anything to change that. So they'll spend their whole training cycle going, oh, it's feeling good, it's feeling good. I've been doing some stretching, but they're not really putting themselves in an environment where they're going to test that out and see how good is it really, right? And so what ends up happening there is these lifters actually end up wasting a lot of time because they don't fix the problem that's holding them back. Instead, they think, oh, you know what, I'm getting better. I haven't heard anything in a while. And then they actually get back to that 500-pound deadlift and, crap, it's sore again, or it hurts, or whatever it may be. You see this pretty similarly in the process of strength gain too. So if we were going to say that instead of pain, we just say you have a plateau that you're facing at 500 pounds on your deadlift, and oh, okay, well, my recovery wasn't that good this block. I'm going to work on improving my recovery, but keep my process exactly the same. And then the next block, they'll do the kind of the same process, but then, well, this will be off. Maybe I had a few days that weren't quite perfect, and so I needed to adjust my. I skipped a week of training or something like that, and then I jump back in on the next part of the cycle. And they kind of go through this whole thing where they're always looking for this perfect spot and this perfect alignment of sequence of a sequence of events, if you will, where they end up getting everything right and the stars align and things are perfect. And frankly, that just doesn't happen. And so I genuinely believe that you have to have a little bit more flexibility in your process if you're going to succeed in powerlifting. I was talking with one of my colleagues a while ago, I think it was last week, and they said, you know what, powerlifting isn't that hard. It's really just about making the most of what you have and doing what you can with it. And sometimes that's showing up and adjusting your process a little bit to take into account some of the factors you're facing in your training right now. Sometimes that's a matter of adjusting the process and making some tweaks at a little bit of a bigger level as opposed to on the day-to-day. But until you look at it with that critical eye and say, hey, you know what, there's this normal amount of variance and mess and noise that happens in my day-to-day life that's going to pull me away from my quote-unquote perfect, and say I'm going to build some flexibility into that plan, I don't think most people are really going to succeed, especially if they're trying something new where they'll just tend to fall off the wagon. Yeah, it's really easy to say, oh, well, world level powerlifter does this method, or this person, this expert says do this, but ultimately if it doesn't work consistently for you and you don't have that consistency, kind of like I mentioned at the start of the video, part of what makes the process boring is doing the same thing over and over. If you're missing that and not able to get consistent incremental increases in the right direction, even if it is a little bit choppy, but the trend moves up, if you're not seeing that improvement, you need to make some adjustments to your process. That's pretty much it, right? So have some flexibility in your plan. Be willing to look at things with an objective eye, a critical eye, if you will, and then make changes if it's not working. Don't say, oh, well, it was just this one thing. I think one time over, that works, and you repeat the process and you fix that thing. But if then it's something else, and then it's something else again, and it's something else again, well, you're clearly, the problem isn't with that thing that was missing. The problem is with your process as a whole that was missing enough flexibility to account for the next thing and the next thing. And so recovery, and then it was sleep, and then it would have been schedule was off, and all that stuff. Have some room in your actual plan to make adjustments for the fact that you're a human And most of us aren't pro athletes. One last thing I'll add is I'm doing a free training on preventing avoidable back injuries. If you'd like an invite to that training, I'm doing it later this week. Comment back below in the comments and I'll get you an invite. Thanks. We'll talk soon.